Welcome back, hunters. Sky Sensei here with another fun mixed build. This one is a raw weapon build utilizing various endgame skills but with a focus on Agitator. I particularly picked the Royal Order Glaive for this video. A lot of you asked about it in my previous video and I also looked at it and it's one of the most stylish weapons. So because of that, I wanted to make a raw focus build just to make it work. Now this build is more of a general Agitator build, so you can actually swap out the weapon quite easily and use any other weapon and it'll perform just as well, or honestly even better, since the Royal Order Glaive is definitely not the strongest weapon, but again it is one of the most stylish insect glaives. So without further ado, let's grab a wire bug and head on out. So first I'm going to talk about the Glaive. The Royal Order is obviously part of the Royal Order set that you can get from doing the follow quests. Specifically, you can complete the MR3 follower quest, a Muddy Revival, a quest where you hunt a single Almudron alongside Rondine. Afterwards, you can talk to her and she'll give you the Royal Order certificate you need to craft the weapon. To upgrade the weapon, you have to wait till MR5 follower quests. These give you the Royal Order Certificate 3, and then you'll also need some endgame parts, namely the Afflicted Fangs and Scales. Just to note as well, only the endgame version is worth it. At max upgrades, this weapon has a base raw damage of 320, quite a decent amount of purple sharpness, 10% affinity, a little defense bonus, Kinsec level 14 which is very good, and a level 2 and 1 deco slot. Now honestly I wish the rampage slot had a level 3, but hey, we can't have everything, right? So overall, not too bad of a weapon. Since it is a raw weapon, the build had to focus on boosting that attack in order to get this weapon to be usable. And for the most part, I actually really love hunting with this weapon now, since this build has made it pretty viable. But just before I get into the build, I want to explain the basis of the skill Agitator for those of you that are new. So if you just want to see the build, skip on ahead. Agitator is a skill which boosts your attack and affinity when the monsters are enraged. Now in Sunbreak, enraging monsters is actually quite easy. It takes anywhere between 8 to 15 hits depending on which parts you hit and how much damage you output in a single hit. And in that enraged state, it's usually indicated by a roar of some sort, usually a second time after the initial roar of a hunt. After that, throughout the hunt, most roars indicate that the monster is transitioning into an enraged state, unless the monster has two different roars. Take Malzeno as an example here. He actually does have two different roars, indicated by his head position. Now one roar is when he transitions into his final form, he roars into the sky. This is not necessarily meaning that he's in an enraged state. Sure, he does look pretty enraged, but he's actually not. However, 95% of the time, as many of you hunters have probably noticed after this transformation, he does an immediate second roar, which is his basic roar. This is the one that indicates that he's going into an enraged state, when his eyes start to glow and he sticks his head forward instead of upwards. So for every monster, there will be a slightly different indicators of when they enter their enraged or final forms. It's something you'll need to learn about each monster. But I digress. Now while Agitator is active with this particular build with max Agitator, you gain plus 20 attack and plus 15 affinity. So that's a heckin' load of damage. And most enraged states last about a minute and 20 seconds roughly, but they can be extended a little bit depending on part breaks and KOs and stuns, etc. Certain monsters can also lose their energy in rage state through special topples, so it's important to be aware if monsters have unique mechanics for damage. Small examples of this could be like Valstrax and breaking his chest, or Malzeno and breaking his concentrated energy parts. So for this reason, I also want to point out here that Agitator isn't the greatest skill to use against anomaly monsters. If you have reached endgame, you'll know anomaly monsters have extra damage parts that you have to focus on, and breaking these cause extra topples for the monster, making them lose their enraged state and thus losing your damage. So yeah, that's my brief overview of Agitator. Let's jump into the build now. So the armor choices for this build are the Auroracanth Helm, the Archfiend Chest, Lunagaron Braces, the Sinister Scorn Magdamala Coils, and the Shagura Greaves. My charm is the one that I always have at the 3 attack boost, but you can swap things around depending on your charms. So looking at the skills, let's talk about affinity first, which represents your critical hit chance. The weapon inherently has 10% affinity, weakness exploit gives us an extra 50% on weak parts, Agitator adds 15% when it's being activated, bringing us to a total of 75. Now from here, I also have the skill Bloodlust level 1 on the Greaves. This skill infects you immediately with Magala's virus, and you have to do a certain number of hits on the monster to clear the virus for 1 minute. While you are infected, your attack damage is actually boosted, but when the virus clears, your affinity is boosted by 20%. That brings us up to 95% affinity for the 1 minute duration, which gives you a great window of damage. Now, if you end up using the Royal Order Glaive, I have slotted in that extra critical eye jewel, giving us the extra 5%, bringing the total to 100% affinity. If you use a different weapon though, you may not have this slot and you will cap at 95%, which is still really good. There's nothing wrong with that. Now yes, some of you may ask the question of why I'm relying on skills like Agitator and Bloodlust for affinity instead of just using straight critical eye. My reasoning for this is because these skills also provide attack boost. Bloodlust particularly gives you an extra 15 attack when you are infected, so even if your affinity is lower, your damage is boosted. And with this particular set, when you clear the virus, the coils have a skill called Coalescence. Now Coalescence provides an extra 12 attack when you clear an ailment from your body. Namely, yes, Magala's virus does count for this, so when you get cleared of the virus from Bloodlust, you lose that attack bonus, but you gain it back from Coalescence. Other skills on this build include the Mail of Hellfire. This skill boosts your raw damage attacks while you are on the red scroll. This is opposite of the final boss armor, which boosts your raw attack on the blue scroll. So with this scroll, your raw damage is boosted on red scroll while your element is boosted on blue scroll. So with that in mind, you'll also need to think about which switch skills you put on the red scroll versus the blue scroll. If you want to see how I apply my scrolls, I have a video link in the description below or the card on the top right of this video right here. The next skill is Chain Crit Skill. This skill boosts your damage upon hitting the monster, and for Glaive users, yes, your Kinsect hits count. So you get plus 5 attack upon a single hit and then plus 10 after 5 hits just using level 1 of this skill. So for this build, it was enough since we get more attack from other skills, it wouldn't have been worth to invest in the higher levels of Chain Crit for 5 extra attack. So those are the unique skills of this build. The rest are pretty standard. I have Critical Boost maxed out because we do hit 100% affinity many times during a hunt. We have Master Touch as well to maintain that sharpness, and we have Razor Sharp level 1 during the downtime in our skills when the monster isn't enraged. Attack boost is as high as possible at level 5, but I want to note here that the coils have a level 4 Jewel Deco slot. If you would like to change something about this build to add some comfort, this is your slot to do it. You can add a Hard Physique Jewel for extra stamina or Power Prolonger Jewels for extra Kinsect uptime. The choice is yours here. That one extra level attack isn't going to make or break this build. So that's it for this build, my friends. Comment below if you have any questions, or if you give this a try, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So here I'm just going to show you guys a little bit of gameplay with the Agitator Skill with this build. So the first and foremost thing that you want to do is you want to just try and get some hits on. You got to clear that Magala virus. You can see in the top my health bar is draining slowly, which means I am infected right now. I have my buffed up attack, so I should be attacking as much as possible to do two things. One, to get rid of the virus, and number two, to send him into an enraged state. Gore specifically has some, he got some of his purple viruses oozing out of his mouth when he's enraged. So here comes the roar. We're going to try and get a knock now with the Kinsect. He is enraged, so I've got my extra infinity from Agitator. And now I'm getting a couple hits in, and there's the white flash. That white flash right there indicated that I am now cleansed. So there's my extra 20% from Bloodlust, bringing us up to a total of 100% affinity. So every hit for the next minute now is going to have full affinity critical damage. So at this point, this is the example that I wanted to show you. This is kind of the loop that you're going to have to go through. Now, unfortunately, the enraged state and your actual cleansing is not in sync. They have different timers. But as I mentioned earlier, it's very easy to enrage monsters. After a couple of hits, they get back into that state. One more example here that I'll show with Malzeno. I'm going to get a strong start off here, get the head hit. So again, we're taking damage over time because of the Magala virus. I'm going to try and get as many hits as we can here without taking too much damage. You got to be a little bit cautious at the start of a hunt, just until you clear that virus. A little bit more hits on the head. So I'd say we're about 30 seconds into the hunt or something. No enrage yet, but we're getting pretty close. So Elder Dragons do typically take just a little bit longer to actually enrage. But now if you take a look at my character, the blue smoke or the virus smoke has gone blue, which means I'm very close to actually clearing it. Couple more hits. There's the white flash. And here's the roar. So now he's been enraged. We have Agitator activated. We have Coalescence activated. And we have Bloodlust extra 20%. Full damage. And we've already broken the head, so we're getting even more damage on the head. So I've got a full minute here to just go straight out and damage him. Try to get a KO as well, and maybe even a knock. I am absolutely loving this Royal Order Glaive. It's a really fun and competitive raw build. And the best part of the whole build is that it's more of a generalized Agitator build. You can swap the weapon out for any other weapon that has good raw and decent affinity and still get good DPS out of it. The use of Agitator is fantastic against MR monsters and it's made a lot of my hunts go a lot smoother. This build also has a few single slot jewels so you can easily slot in a brace when you go and hunt with your friends. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed the build and I'll see you next time. Stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.